Looks like it's trying to do its thing. We're live on Facebook with Kristina Rinaldi, who is showing her wares. She is the executive director of Detroit Dog Rescue, and so many people know exactly who you are. You are a force to be reckoned with in this city, locally, nationally, and happy National Dog Day.
Yeah, thank
which
you.
which is today. And I like to say there is a day for everything, but how exciting that you were talking today on National Dog Day, which I guess means go out and do something wonderful for your dog or rescue a dog, volunteer
Yes,
at Detroit Dog Rescue, whatever you can do.
right.
So thanks for coming on and talking to me. I've been really excited to really meet you. I was telling you offline that we've crossed paths at TV stations, we've crossed paths in other ways, but I've been, I always tell people I'm stalking you friendly on
Oh,
Facebook for all the great things that you do.
well, the feeling is mutual. I'm so happy we could talk, and we didn't plan it for National Dog
No.
Day. What a perfect day to have a
I
conversation.
know, and I'll confess, I didn't know it except for I love that all my friends, it seems, and you can tell me this, it seems that one thing that's come out of this pandemic is that if people are at home, they've decided to expand their families. And
Yes,
yeah,
and I always kind of look for the silver lining in difficult times. Anybody that knows me knows that. And it was kind of exciting that literally the first and second day that everything shut down, we had 300 foster and adoption applications to go through. So people really are, first time adopters, people who have just moved into their homes, first time homeowners. Um, but the attitude that everybody wants to pitch in and help has been great at Detroit Dog Rescue. People that wouldn't normally have adopted or fostered are coming to us, and everybody just wants to feel like they're doing something and they want to help a rescue dog. So, of course, it's been really hard throughout this pandemic. We've had to change a lot of things, but we're always looking for the silver lining, and so many more dogs are in homes. And I think we're seeing that because I think in every Zoom meeting that I've had, a dog was interrupted. So
yeah.
I just love that.
So I think early on, let's talk about this. I think early on, people were losing their jobs or furlough. I mean, there's so many things that happen that one of the things that did happen that people were worried about how to feed themselves, their families, and that we did see a high rise in how to feed or don't forget about your pets. And that was very concerning that don't forget about the elderly, don't forget about your pets.
Mhm.
And would you say that was what happened, why there was an increase?
Absolutely. And we were really prepared for it at Detroit Dog Rescue. Detroit Dog Rescue started 10 years ago in the midst of a bankruptcy in Detroit, in the midst of the foreclosure crisis. So I now can literally say in 10 years, we've almost been through everything imaginable when you start out like that. But that was when we started, that was the case. People would come to me on the streets of Detroit and say, Kristina, I want to keep my dog. I'm a good dog owner, but I've been laid off from Ford and Chrysler. And, if you remember that time, there were no hiring signs anywhere. It was
Mm-hmm.
very desperate time. So what we orchestrated were outreach programs, pet pantry programs, and we got food to good dog owners in the city of Detroit and Metro Detroit. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I knew weeks before the shutdown, like my brain started going and said, we have to really push forces out to those outreach programs because the truth is, if you're a good dog owner, I don't want your dog in my shelter. And
Yeah.
that's what people resort to is they automatically resort to, I'm going to have to turn my dog in.
Mm-hmm.
If we can think of solutions together, if you just need 6 months of dog food, we have places like Premier Pet Supply and pet, supply distributors that will give so we can keep your dog in your home. The last place I want your dog is in my shelter.
So I kind of do this sometimes. I sort of repeat because you just hit on something that is, if I could repeat, and that is people need their dogs in their homes right now. It is isolating time. We're about to, in Michigan, hit what I call really an isolating time where fall is beautiful. We can be outside, but we hit that beginning of November, we're going to all hibernate. We hibernate
Right.
naturally anyway. And if people need, if they're loving and caring dog owners, you are a huge resource to keep that dog in that home. And that is so important. I mean, so important. People need, I have friends and they love their kids. Let's face it, we all love our kids, but
Right.
there's no unconditional. I mean, that unconditional love of your pet.
There are so many, and I'm glad that you reiterate that because I am a fast talker.
No, it wasn't
No,
that. It's just
I,
that I want people to really understand that the Detroit Dog Rescue is this resource of not sheltering a dog to move the dog onto a different home. It's also a resource to help you keep your dog.
you
And
really hit it. Absolutely. There's and there's so many mental health studies that pertain to right now saying that having a pet in your home, like you just hit it with, the isolation,
mhm,
and we've lost so much. We've lost our sense of normalcy.
yeah,
And I don't think it's going to come back or ever be exactly the way it was. And we've all kind of sat with that. But to lose your pet, that's like losing a loved one right now.
yeah.
So if we can, whatever we can do, and I get hundreds of emails per day, everything from my dog won't potty train to I can't afford my dog. And the first thing I want to do is, we have a training program, we have an outreach program. Let's go through the 10 steps of how can we, if it's feasible for you, how can we keep your dog in your home? I am not the shelter that's, okay, well, you want to surrender a dog, be at the shelter between 8 to 2. You're going to have to sign him over. We'll take his leash, because these are family members. These are sensitive times. This is a sensitive subject, and we want to help in many different ways. And I think every shelter really has that responsibility. The last resort is handing over that leash and bringing your dog into my shelter.
I think that's so important. And tell me about the process though, if you want to adopt and become a dog owner.
Absolutely. So we love to see our dogs go to happy homes. These dogs, Detroit Dog Rescue is really committed to the dogs of Detroit. As you mentioned, I do help shelters nationally, and sometimes we do cross borders and help with efforts like closing. We just closed down a horrid sanctuary where there was 165 senior dogs that were just left in the worst conditions. And, we helped the Bissell Pet Foundation with that. But we really focus on the Detroit dogs. And these dogs, sometimes they're coming from a life of being chained up. We work with Detroit Police, the Detroit Fire Department, Detroit Animal Control. So to me, these are really just some of the best dogs waiting for their new life. If you're interested, what we ask right now, because of COVID, obviously our system has changed and we're not welcoming people to just walk through the shelter every day. All of our dogs are updated every single day online at DetroitDogRescue.com. And what we ask is that you pick a dog, you fill out what we call an application, but I really like to call it an adoption survey. We want to get a sense of what goes on in your home, what you're looking for to make sure it's a right fit. I don't ever want anyone to think it's this rigorous application, because some people have actually gotten a bad taste in their mouth and said, I've tried to rescue a dog, and because I don't have a fenced in yard, I'll never make it. Now I will tell you, if I did the rule of I don't have a fenced in yard, I'm cutting out Northville, Bloomfield, West Bloomfield, some of the best owners I know. So we call it an adoption survey. So you'll fill out an adoption survey, and then we will meet with you socially distanced so you can meet the dog, and then start the adoption process, which is, maybe doing a 3-day sleepover to see if that dog is right for you. We are not the rescue pet store. You come in, you pick a dog, you pay a fee, and then I get a call 2 weeks later that dog might not be working out. We really are. We're the matchmaker of dog rescue.
I love that. So the bottom line is you need to make sure that once the dog leaves, where the love and care that you've rescued it's going to love and care, meaning that if a dog shouldn't be around young children,
right,
because it's afraid, that's not a good match. I mean, and it's not a good match for the family, I mean. So what's interesting to me, going back a little bit, is that people are home now more, And so they are adding a new loved one to their house. Um, I, every year I see this at the holidays where it says, don't jump to get a pet for your kids as a holiday gift.
Right.
And I'm always like kind of thinking to myself, but what if they wanted a pet for the
Right.
you know? I'm like, my kids have asked, and you and I were talking offline. Our family is so highly allergic. I was throwing my husband under the bus and said I'd keep the dog if he, but the truth is that, while we are at home right now and we're home more and our kids are home more, I like to think it's a good time. Most of my friends have said to me, Sarah, you're home all the time, you're working, get a dog. But that all sounds good. Is it really a good idea? Is it the best time?
So I sit down with families all the time, and I have actually delivered puppies on Christmas morning and Hanukkah night worked with the family to surprise the kids. And I think that's a fun memory. Your pet becomes part of all of your memories. And, those can be great ways if they're facilitated properly. I think anytime, whether it's a holiday, whether unfortunately we're going through a pandemic, some people like to adopt in summer versus winter. I think sitting down and feasibly thinking it out with your family or in your head, do I have the time to potty train, crate train? You are home, but if you are back-to-back Zoom calls every 5 minutes, that dog is still going to need to go out. It's still going to want to play with you while you're on Zoom calls. A lot of the calls I was getting during the pandemic were, I'm home, I'm working from home, I'm on Zoom, and my dog won't stop barking, and I'm trying to talk to my boss. What doggy date? What can you do with this dog? Kristina, can you come train it? Mm-hmm. So I think looking at all of your options whenever you're going to adopt is the best. And I'm a whiteboard person. I will have a whiteboard hanging in my office, in my home office, and I list all the pros and cons about a lot of things. And I think considering a pet, bringing it into the family, it's a great thing to list your pros and cons and see where you and your family lie. Because this is not just mom's job. This is dad's job. The kids are going to be, I'm hearing a lot of people doing pods or homeschooling. This is now going to impact everybody's routine. So I think thinking rationally and making a list is a great idea.
I think it's interesting that you talk about the Zoom calls and the dogs and everything, because the other component of that is I've been on so many networking calls and Zoom calls where people are saying, oh, my dog, and this was, early on too, that the dogs are like, what the heck is going on? Someone explained to my dog, there's a pandemic and we're all home. and all of a sudden, dogs are used to goodbyes in the morning and I'll be home later. And now there's a whole lot of traffic in the house, and there's a little bit of confusion. I was talking to someone who does like a doggy daycare, and she was suggesting, and I'll get your feedback too, she was suggesting that, now that things are a little bit more open, and she's open, she wasn't open for a while. She was suggesting that people start thinking about taking your dogs back out to do some of the play dates and a little bit more doggy daycare kind of things, even if you're going golfing, if you're working or something, because we're not going to be in this state forever of closed in, I hope. We all hope. But, especially before it maybe gets too cold and things like that. But to sort of give your dog that, if anything, we can give our dog a sense of normalcy.
I completely agree. And what it is it's classically conditioning your dog without flooding them. They've been inside too now with us for, we're going on 6 months. And, if your dog has been with you, close to you for 6 months, you probably don't want to just go throw them in doggy daycare right now, because they get what's called flooded, just all of that activity coming to their brain. But I do agree with, let's start taking them out for walks again. I think it's really important for your dog to be left alone again, because I do think you're right. We're not, we are altered forever. I believe that, but we're not going to be in this state forever. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest mistake I see people make is they're with their dogs 24/7 now. So your dog is going to, especially if you got a puppy in the last 6 months, now when you're going to start leaving the house and your dog's going to be home alone for 2, 6, 8 hours, whatever, they're going to have no idea what to do, and they're going to have anxiety. When you run into anxiety like that, they start crying and whining. They want out of the house, out of the crate. They chew up windows. They chew up carpet because they don't know where you went. So I think it's important, even if I have a home office, even if I'm in my home office, I have a beautiful, energetic chocolate lab. I'll go put him in another room away from me for a little while. He has his own little suite.
Mm-hmm.
Or, the whole family will leave the house for a family walk, and maybe he won't go on that walk with us. So a little bit of separation time, starting to separate from our dogs, is a really good thing.
So before we got on, you asked me about me working from home.
Yes.
And I've done it for, so I date how long I've actually worked from home. My son is 27.
This is a little preface. Like, I know you have older kids. I have an 18-month-old
right.
year-old
so,
and I work from home. And I said, sorry, do you work from home? And she said, I've worked from home for 30 years. I said, how do you do it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you how you do it. You leave them in the other room. Sometimes you're just around the corner, and sometimes you do use an educational video. Sometimes as they get older, it's Star Wars. It's a little bit of both. Sometimes it's good parenting. Sometimes it's just
whatever works.
Relief parenting. It depends.
Yeah.
But I it's the same thing, like almost like a dog, which is your family member. They got to see you in the house. But they also, my kids, I have a door that has glass on it. And my kids at 27 still walk by and they're like, is she on the phone? Is she on a Zoom call? Like, what's going on? And they learned at an early age, like barge in or not. But the funny thing is, I think in this pandemic, people have been a lot looser about kids and dogs running in than in the previous months before.
Absolutely. It's so funny. I have a client and she was always like, I have an office outside of the home and I have my little home office. And she was always like, I'll come to your house. And I was like, at the time my daughter was 5 and I was like, you don't understand. Like, we can't work from my house, but I appreciate the offer. But you're so right about that. And it is really, I didn't think of that, just conditioning my kids to know, like, I'm on the phone.
This is my workspace. I mean, we talk about space, and I was saying to you, like, we've gone through this, my husband and I, I'm like, okay, if we got a dog, we'll rip out the carpet downstairs. Maybe that will help. We go through like so many scenarios because we really want a dog. So we're like, okay, we won't let the dog upstairs because there's so much carpet, but we'll redo the downstairs. And then, we both go, who are we kidding? That dog's going to jump in our bed and we're going to cuddle. Yep. So I hate to say a dog is like your child and your children. So I'm sure there's a lot of conditioning. I do want to switch gears to really the serious work you do. And that is, we were talking, there was a horrible story just last night about up north, a puppy mill. And you get a lot of phone calls that aren't necessarily set or to DDR, but you also get those too. Bad things have happened in Detroit with dogs over the years, and you get those calls too. Tell me a little bit about sort of additional role that the Detroit Dog Rescue and you in your role that you have to play and assist and be a voice.
Yeah, and I appreciate you recognizing that. It isn't, I'm really careful when I do talk about it because it's really not for everybody. Like you said, everybody loves dogs and they're like our children and we instantly bond with them. And so for some of us, it's hard to hear, but in Detroit, and Detroit has come such a long way in the last 10 years. When Detroit Dog Rescue started, animal control was euthanizing 99.9% of the dogs that came in. There was just no resources. There was nothing. And by 2014, we had opened the first no-kill shelter in the city of Detroit. By 2015, I had assisted Mayor Duggan with creating an animal welfare committee, which overturned leadership at Detroit Animal Care and Control, started an adoption program, a volunteer program. So they have more resources, but 200 dogs could leave Detroit and 500 dogs will come in. And the magnitude of what we see, in a way, it prepared me to help countrywide because I don't see anything like this in most other cities or states. Down south has it really bad too, but we're seeing the worst of the worst. I've accompanied police officers on drug raids and firefighters on house fires or just the worst imaginable cruelty that you can see. And the way we assist is, Detroit is great, but Detroit Animal Care and Controls is still in need of an x-ray machine. They just brought on a full-time vet. They're trying and they're making great strides, but DDR kind of fills in the gaps where we can. I get phone calls from Detroit firefighters at 2:00 in the morning. We just put out a fire. The whole family, unfortunately, is in the hospital. There's a dog here. Can you take it? I've held it for the family until they were able to get out of the hospital. We've had them surrendered. 6 months ago, DTE called me in the middle of the night. There was a home explosion because somebody shot off an AK-47 into a gas line, and they left 2 dogs in the backyard that were hit with the bricks. Firefighters couldn't get near these dogs. They were aggressive at the time because they were scared. Right. We got in there, assisted, helped the dogs. So, the things I don't like to say, but I've seen everything. And right. Every time I say that, something else calls. So we really fill in the gap. We've taken really hard dogs that Detroit could never rehab medically, and we've fixed them. We're talking, leg amputations and bullet wounds and just some really horrific stuff. And people ask me all the time, Kristina, how do you do this? I've been doing this for 10 years. And I'm a mother, and, I do a lot. Because DDR is able to save 97.6% of the dogs we take in, mm-hmm. and so many happy outcomes, that is what keeps me going. I compare it to, a pediatric surgeon that's just got to go in that operating room and get it done, because the outcome is going to be positive.
A couple questions. How are you funded?
We are funded completely by public donations, grants. And
so I want to, and I rarely ask a question I don't know the answer to in that regard.
I knew you knew.
Yeah, well, but I'm going to reiterate that because, I think that it's really important, especially right now. DDR needs funding all the time. There's never a time, but in a pandemic, when you have a little something, I'm gonna put the plug out there to say we're going into the holiday season. We talk about making sure there's always a gift for your loved one under the tree, but there are dogs that are always in need. You can't do your work unless people give, and we need people to love their own animals, love wanting to have an animal, but also being able to help fund you to do your work. It's one of the reasons that you were able to go to, the mayor and say, this is how we're going to do this. Right. You step up, Mayor.
Right.
But,
absolutely.
And he did. But I say, like, when you go and you make someone step up, it's because you've got a product and you're going to show it, and you've done that, but you can't do it alone,
Right. And what people fund is they fund solutions. I never go and present a problem without a solution, but Detroit Dog Rescue, we're able to do that. But you mentioned the pandemic. It is a very scary time for us. We are in the process of building a second shelter on the west side, but we're looking at what are this next 6 months going to look like for mm-hmm. everybody? Are we going to have X amount of reoccurring donors? Because we have X amount of dogs still today that need to eat dinner tonight, that need a place to live, that need a place to go. And I'll tell you right now, there's 240 dogs at Detroit Animal Control waiting for me. So there's always a need. And these dogs are some of the, they deserve it the most. These dogs some of them have never touched grass before, have never really been given a chance. And they're the dogs that a lot of shelters won't take a chance on. There aren't a lot of other shelters rushing to get these dogs. The good thing is Detroit Dog Rescue has a rehabilitation program. So it's not like you're in by Friday, you have to be out and adopted by Sunday. We're with them every step of the way to create a life for them to get adopted. But you're so right, it takes funds, and we are funded by, just public donations.
How, when you talk about a rehabilitation, and I know every case is different, obviously, but sort of an average, you get a dog, and because I think that probably can be scary to a family. Mm-hmm. How long does it usually take a dog to sort of settle in and then be ready to go to a home?
That's a great question. We have some dogs who we talked about conditioning earlier. Mm-hmm. They've never touched grass, they've never heard a car. We put them in a foster home where they can hear what a dishwasher sounds like. I'll never forget, I fostered a dog and I turned on my blow dryer to do my hair. She had never heard that before. So they're just getting, so to get acclimated to those sights and sounds, about 90 days, and they're in a home and they're happy. The dogs that, might come from a police raid, they've, been conditioned to not be around as many people. You're looking at probably about a year. But when we clean these dogs up and show, excuse me, I get choked up, and showing them what love is, when they learn what love is, it's amazing. And the reason why I'm so passionate about it is I had a very hard upbringing as well. And so I resonate with these dogs and I believe in them. And we work with trainers from Michigan State that, trainers that are training at the Creature Conservancy, they work with crocodiles and all kinds of things. We have the best trainers, and we really do amazing things with these dogs.
I really encourage everyone who's listening, and then we'll share the link. And Kristina is passionate about her work. She's passionate about her family. I'm having you back on because we're gonna talk about your other passion, which is eating healthy. Because I want that for I want to do that for a different day. Yeah, we'll separate that out. We'll talk about that. And but you really you exhaust me. I think I'm getting old because I love, you're a riot. Like you got to follow Kristina on Facebook because first of all, she's a girl after my own heart. She gets her coffee at Starbucks. Sorry, Starbucks should pay for my FaceTime.
Yeah, no, I love it.
But you are all in, lady. I mean, you are just really passionate, and I love the message, and that you want so much to make sure that that the dogs are so cared for, and then move on to the right families, and that's just become how you have really instilled, this whole powerful force of the Detroit Dog Rescue. I'd like to say, is there anything I didn't ask you that we need people to know, other than please go to DetroitDogRescue.com, follow on Facebook, because you'll see the work. Sometimes you need a strong stomach, I'll say. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, to see a dog that's been rescued and been hurt. But it's like watching a commercial or watching the news. Don't turn away, turn to the solution. And people who know me know that I don't watch bloody gutsy shows, but the truth is that we can't turn our eyes. That doesn't change the solution to the things that are going on. And
right. I mean, you really, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. 20 miles away from where most of us live that are watching this now, there's a dog that needs us. And, thankfully, because of the pandemic, we're able to post a lot more happy stuff, dogs going into homes lately. And that's always a good thing. But, I appreciate just everybody even being an advocate. If you can't donate, I understand. I want to add that $5 feeds a shelter dog dinner for a week. People are always like, I can only give $5. That's huge. Give the $5, share the status with a friend. Sharing on social media is huge. DDR started because of social media and YouTube. So I just can't thank you enough for having me on and really an advocate for the dogs.
Well, you can come back anytime. Keep me posted on things going on. I am going to have you back so we can talk about eating healthy, low carbs and keto. I need to get my brain readjusted to that. And I don't know how, look, powerhouse, how you do it with little kids. I know I did it back then, but I didn't do it during a pandemic, as I like to say.
Well, I'm very fortunate that I have strong leaders just like yourself. I mean that seriously mean that to, that teach me so much and keep me going. So you keep doing it. I see you all over social media and running in and out of Fox, and I really appreciate you.
Well, the feeling is mutual. Have an amazing day. Definitely everybody share this, because the message of Detroit Dog Rescue is so important.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.